Whole Man Academy. Because the world needs strong men. Whole Man Academy is changing the game for men around the world. It's for guys who want to live an epic life of fun and adventure, no matter what. We believe, deep down, all men want to go on their own hero's journey to becoming resilient, confident, fearless, and fulfilled. Listen in to be inspired by guys who don't settle for living a life of mediocrity. This is your call to action and call to adventure. Are you ready?
Okay, so this is the Whole Man Academy podcast, episode 96. My guest today is Paul Miners. What is he? Productivity blogger, virtual consultant, father. I talk of him as a man of action and a man of freedom because of what he's done in his life. Firstly, how are you and where are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Anthony. So I'm doing pretty good today. Can't complain. And I'm calling in from Auckland, New Zealand. So it's Wednesday morning here. I'm coming to you from the future.
Good. Well, yeah, I mean, I was trying to think whether it was, I'm still getting my time zones worked out. And, you know, where I've been interviewing more guys from around the world, the fun of trying to make sure that someone's, you know, well, I've got the right time zones. But I mean, you just talked about it's early morning there. We're going to get onto the productivity because I shared one of your blog posts today on our e-letter, which was about the importance or how powerful it could be to get up early to get stuff done, you know, to be productive. Yeah. But let me just take you back firstly to, because I think you've got a great story back to like 2012, where you said that you read like the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And then in September of 2012, I was reading where you said you bought a domain name and you started blogging. And this is the important thing from where you are now, started blogging about nothing in particular, random ideas mostly. And you said, you know, have a look at the early posts, they're crap. So what got you into that to start with, to even buy a domain and kind of, you know, want to take this path?
Yeah, great question. It's actually crazy thinking it must be, like 10 years. You've actually made me realize, wow, it's been like 10 years this year. So no, I mean, at the time I was at university. In fact, so it must have been early 2012. Yeah, I think I read the 4-Hour Work Week for the first time. I was studying business and majoring in marketing and entrepreneurship at university. And so I was always, that was with the end goal in mind of trying to work for myself, just run my own company. And at the time, actually, I wanted to run like a big business. I wanted to do like, you know, obviously social media was booming and lots of money going into tech. So I thought I'd do something kind of like have a big company. And I read the 4-Hour Work Week. And that really opened my eyes to this idea of running like a lifestyle business, you know, one where you don't have to work ridiculous hours. You don't even have to make much money. Like what Tim Ferriss talks about is like, if you actually plan out what you want to do, like how you want to spend your time, what you want to have, like if you want to have a house or a car, like what are the things that you want, and kind of plan the costs related to those. He actually breaks down the things you want and how you want to spend your time probably doesn't cost as much as you think. And running a lifestyle. And so this really opened my ideas to running a lifestyle business. And since then I've read the 4-Hour Work Week every couple of years, just as a refresher. And so, I'd read the book. How the blog came about is I was actually having a dinner with kind of a mentor at the time who said, we were just having a dinner. It was really just a passing comment. He just said, oh, you guys, my friend was there as well. He was kind of a bit of a mentor to both of us. He said, you guys need to buy your name, you know, paulminers.com. It's just, everyone should have their own name as a domain. So anyone listening today or watching, if you don't have yourname.com, try and get it, because you just never know what you might want to do. So it was a really kind of just like fleeting passing comment. And I thought, okay, yeah, let's go and see if it's available. And it was. And so I just grabbed it and I thought, well, okay, let me just start blogging and just figuring out WordPress just as a bit of a side project hobby, really. And so I was talking about some random stuff, but then I started gravitating towards productivity because it was a topic that I was interested in. And I thought, well, maybe there's some way I could monetize this passion, this skill that I have, and be sort of an authority around productivity. And productivity was interesting to me because at the time I was finishing up university, and it was really where I was starting to experiment with and test different productivity habits, time blocking on my calendar. And so that was when I was testing all these different ideas, and I naturally started working out how can I be more efficient, because at university it was a moment for me when you really had to be more disciplined with how you spent your time, like compared to being at school where you've got a timetable and the teachers are kind of chasing you in terms of getting assignments handed in and stuff. At university, I don't know how it compares in the UK. I imagine it's similar, but like you're very much on your own. Nobody's chasing you to come to class. Nobody's going to bother you to get the assignment done. And if you don't kind of hold yourself accountable, nobody else is. So it was this kind of time in my life where I was kind of really realizing the importance of being self-sufficient, being disciplined with my time, and that then turned into sort of the productivity blog. But yeah, that's kind of how it all got started, really. Yeah,
I think it's great because I know you're reading the numbers. I mean, how many people roughly have you got on your email list now?
I think I've got about 25,000 ish, 20 to 25,000 subscribers. I actually used to have a lot more, but I've actually culled that back, just cleaning my list of inactive subscribers. So about 25,000 now. Yeah.
I'm interested in all this because I was so green to all of this stuff from my, years of working as an employee, and, I turned up, did my job, went home, and that was it. So suddenly when I was thrust into the world of the Whole Man Academy, setting up, and you've got subscribers, and you've got, now and again, you get an odd unsubscriber, and it's funny, you might get 5 subscribers in a day, but you have the one unsubscriber and you feel the pain of the one unsubscriber. You're like, what did I do? What did I say?
Yeah.
So I find that interesting. But again, for guys listening, that thing where you said, I just got started, and, you were randomly talking about stuff, not necessarily having a clear plan. And then, years and years later, you say grew up, 25, 35,000 or whatever. But what I laughed at and I loved was, you said in February 2015, you started working on a paid online course, which is a 6-week productivity program. And you said you hosted a webinar, which was basically a total flop because only 6 people came to it. And it was back to the drawing board. And again, it's a great reminder that I'm sure you learned a lot from it, but for whatever reason, it didn't work. But this was the cool bit when you said 25th of April 2015, basically you made your first online sale. So what was that like? Because I remember the first time I did, I think it was the 24th of July last year.
Yeah.
And your email comes in and says, somebody's bought your course, and you're like, fuck, like, yes, it works.
It was very much a fuck moment because it was, what I'd done is I'd made an email course called the 7-Day Productivity Plan, which was kind of like a lead magnet on my website. You can, instead of just, sign up to my newsletter, I came up with a 7-day program. You're going to get an email a day for 7 days with some basic tips and things. And that was just a free email course. And at the end, on day 7, I said, if you want to buy an ebook of this course, here's the link. You can go and do that. And it was really funny because it's like, I'm literally selling something to somebody that they've already had the benefit of.
Yes.
So that was kind of an interesting moment. It's like, they've already done the 7-day plan. I literally just repackaged it and said, right, I've just put it into an ebook for you. So if you don't want to search through your emails and go and find them, you've got the ebook. And I think maybe there was an audio. Actually, I can't even remember if I had the audio book at the time. Might have come later.
Yeah.
And so I just repackaged that existing content, and I can't remember the pricing at the time. I think it must have been around $10 to $15, pretty, on the low end, pretty cheap and reasonable. And it was a Saturday morning. The PayPal notification, I think I'd set this up maybe on the Friday or a few days before, but the PayPal notification came in on my phone. So-and-so has paid you, I think it was $9.99 actually. Right. So-and-so has paid you $9.99. And I couldn't believe it. And so, I ran into the bedroom to tell my wife, and I was like, oh, look, somebody bought my course. And it was this realization that, like, I'd created something out of thin air, literally just ideas in my head. I'd turned into an email course and an ebook, and it was digital. I wasn't selling a physical product. And that was something, a big takeaway from the 4-hour work week is if you're looking for an idea, like information, knowledge is a really great thing to try and sell, because you're not shipping any physical goods. You don't really have to deal with returns. Your margin is a lot higher. So I'd sold this $9.99 ebook. I pay a PayPal fee of 2.9% or something. Yeah. The rest is pure profit. So it's this digital thing I've just shipped. I'd never talked to that customer. I'd never had a one-on-one. They just signed up to my email. They'd enjoyed the course. They bought the ebook. So I'd never had a one-on-one interaction. And now I had received money. And so it was this great, like, moment of validation that, look, you can do this. Like, you can do this. Now somebody's giving you money. Now you just need to, like, work out how to make it better and get more. So it was great validation. And after years of, trying different things, and it was just a really positive memory that I still look back on really fondly, but a really important moment. Yeah.
And that's what I was wondering, was because sometimes, on one level, someone would look and say, oh, well, it's only one product that you've sold for, $10, but it is that sometimes it gives you the belief. I remember listening to an internet marketing guy many years ago, and he said he'd created something on, I don't know, let's call it Minecraft, but it was some computer game where he kind of just, like you said, he'd recorded his top 7 tips on how to complete it, and put it on on the systems. And I think 6 months later, he woke up and he got an email saying, you've just been credited $7, and that was what sparked him to be like you just said, okay, well, now I've got the belief that it can happen. I say, how can I scale it, do more, do it better, etc. So it's I think because a lot of people have this vision of the word passive income, which is great because you might be asleep, or you might be skiing, or you might be at the gym, and there could be this income, but people often forget there's often a lot of hard work beforehand to get it.
Yeah.
So where have you taken, because going through to productivity, how have you taken that where you've properly monetized being kind of extremely good at productivity?
Yeah. So after that sale, it wasn't until 2016 that I really earned enough to quit my job. And that was the goal, is I just want to earn enough from this little side project to replace my salary. Because I was getting pretty frustrated with my job, and really just wanted to be out on my own. And at the time I was focusing more on products and chasing that kind of passive income. I'd seen people making courses and digital products and making a lot of money that way. But what I learned, through that 6-week program that we mentioned, it completely flopped. It's really hard to develop a course and build an audience and get that reach that you need to make a good income that way. So I thought, what can I do in the meantime just to hit that target monthly income figure, that income that I need to quit my job? What can I do? And I thought, well, maybe there's some consulting I can do, and maybe there's some services I can help people with. So, and I actually thought back to, I thought about what are the skills that I have, and I'd thought back to an experience in this marketing role that I had at an e-commerce website I was working at here in New Zealand, where we'd set up Asana for the business. Asana is a project management tool. We tried a few different project management tools. We hadn't really had much success with any of them. I found Asana, and being the natural productivity geek that I am, I figured out how to use it, and I trained everyone on how to use it. And about 50 person team kind of switched over to using it. The owner of the business then paid me a bonus. He said, this has been so good. He paid me a bonus. So that was, again, some really good validation that what you did was really valuable. And so that was actually back in 2013, 14, maybe. And so back into 2016, I thought back to that experience and thought, oh, okay, well, I had this really good experience at my job. Maybe other businesses would be willing to pay for support with a tool like Asana. So I niched down. So instead of just being like a productivity expert and just let me help you with productivity, which is quite generic, quite hard to stand out that way, I thought, I'm going to be an Asana consultant. I'm going to help people with Asana. And so I started marketing myself that way, making videos on YouTube. I put myself as an expert on a few directory websites, and then I quickly started getting booked and getting inquiries. And so I then set up Google ads to get more exposure. Let me get people searching on Google and get in front of people. And so I really just doubled down on it. I then started doing the same with Pipedrive, which is a CRM that I was using at my a new job at the time. And so I thought, let me help people with this CRM. So really just specializing in those two tools, Asana and Pipedrive, I just sort of started this sort of consulting arm to my business. And that helped me then get enough of an income to justify quitting my job and doing what I wanted to do full time. And so that's kind of still what I do today. The model has changed a lot. I don't do as much one-on-one now. We have courses and group coaching and things that we do, and there are some one-on-ones. I have a few contractors that help me as well, so it's a lot more scalable now. But that was how I transitioned, was by really niching down into a few specific areas that I could help people on.
Isn't it important when people talk about niching down, because I think even when we started the Whole Man Academy, it was very much, some people said, oh, we're trying to appeal to all men. And you're like, well, you know, trying to appeal to all men means different wording and different language and different images and, you know, different feel for it. And yeah, I guess it's one of the big things, as you said, going just to say, right, I'm on the Asana kind of train, and doing it that way is interesting. And I just wonder for you, with, because a lot of guys I speak to through the Whole Man Academy want to transition out of their 9-to-5 job and do something that they actually like. So do you see that yourself, where a lot of people, that's their goal, is either starting a side hustle or being able to make enough money to at least cover their salary?
Yeah, I think everyone's different. I think a lot of people, want to work for themselves. It's not for everyone. I mean, I remember having a lot of, I don't know if I want to use the word anxiety. I didn't suffer from anxiety, but definitely a lot of, maybe a better word would be like imposter syndrome.
Right. Yeah.
You know, this is where you sort of doubt your abilities. And for the first few years, like I would say probably 2 years after I quit my job, I had this imposter syndrome where I was like, look, I'm just on a lucky streak here. This is all going to come to an end. And I was just kind of telling myself, like, you're getting customers and leads right now, but that's gonna dry up. There's no way this can continue.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of constantly planning for the worst and trying to save up enough so I had some runway just in case. And I think that it's just a part of the journey, really, part of the switch in terms of going from like a safe salaried job where you get a guaranteed paycheck every week to now, oh, you're on your own. Like, it's up to you to make the money. And so that imposter syndrome
for you.
Yeah. I mean, so it's not for everyone. If you are a bit more risk adverse, if you need that guaranteed, that security, there's nothing wrong with a job.
Yeah.
I'm just someone that I'm happy to take on a bit of that uncertainty, a bit of that risk, in exchange for more freedom over my time and how I work, and I get to work on what I want. So yeah, absolutely. If you're willing to kind of take that leap, if you're happy dealing with a bit of uncertainty and taking a risk, I think it's a great lifestyle if you can make it work.
I was thinking it's if someone's got that burning desire, you've got to try it, because if you don't, and then you get that bit older and you always wonder what if. So whether it's, I always find it interesting, because some people will say, you should just quit your job and get, go, and you're just like, okay, sometimes maybe, like you say, maybe you build up 6 months salary or 6 months, worth of salary, so that when you leave, you've got a bit of a buffer before you go into that. But was it for you a lot of it about, I know obviously you've got, a family now as well, but was it so you have that freedom to travel? And, and I use the word freedom because for me, I realize that's very important in my now 40s, in my 30s I started. So was it about being able to travel yourself as well?
Travel, sure, was definitely part of it. I mean, in doing that sort of Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week exercise, like, what do you want to do? Travel is definitely up there. And actually, at the start of 2017, so right after I quit my job, we went traveling for 5 months.
Right.
And actually, that was a really nice way to transition to doing my own thing. So definitely travel, and that really helped really light this fire underneath me of like, look what this is enabling me to do. Like, if I can work for myself, I can travel, I can work from anywhere. So yeah, travel was definitely part of it. But for me, the biggest motivator was just having complete control over my time.
Yeah.
And, in the few jobs that I'd had before, I'd always been frustrated when I would have like an idea of like, this is, working in marketing, here's something I think we should do. And if I ever face like pushback in terms of, corporate bureaucracy, like, oh, we need to get that signed off, or like, these other people need to give their opinions. That always frustrated me when I would have an idea I believed in, I thought it was really good, and then it would get shut down by the powers that be. And so that was just like, I just want to be able to have control of my time, execute on my ideas, do work that I enjoy. That really was the bigger motivator, is just having that kind of personal freedom and independence to do what I wanted. Yeah.
That's so important, I think, from different guys I either know who still work back in the city when I was there for a long time, and or guys that I talked to through the Whole Man Academy, is, some are quite happy being an employee and doing their Monday to Friday, and other guys have that feeling of they want the freedom to be able to, and again, it's not just the travel, but kind of work when you want and not have to answer to anybody. And I remember, I think I was in my mid-30s and I wanted to go on holiday, and I had to ask permission at work, and the head of the desk said, well, no, because he's off and you have to be here. I remember thinking like, I don't know how old I was, maybe 35. I was like, I'm 35 and I have to ask permission if I can go on holiday. And it was a no. And that was like a little red flag for me. But talking about productivity, you know, early mornings are one of those big things which I find so important for people, because if you start, for me, if you start your day right, hopefully the rest of it will kind of follow. So talk to me about your, has it evolved, but your general kind of morning routine?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I would say, I mean, I'm an early morning person, love getting up early, think it's a great way to start the day. And yeah, there are lots of blog posts and articles you can read about how Tim Cook and all these big successful people, whatever that means, get up early to start their day. But at the end of the day, you have to do what works for you. So just because I'm a morning person and it works for me, if you prefer starting your day at 10 o'clock and working more in the afternoon and later, that's fine. The whole thing, productivity is so personal. It's about finding what tools, what systems, what habits and routines work for you. So in terms of my routine is pretty simple, pretty boring, actually. I wake up usually about 5:30. I hit the snooze on my watch a couple of times just to ease into the day. I get up, I shower, I have breakfast, and now I'm working from home at the moment. I've worked from co-working spaces a lot over the years, but I am home at the moment. And so then I just get to work, and usually I'm starting my day getting through my inbox, my email. With the time zone difference to a lot of my clients who are in the US, they've already started their day. So I like to get into my inbox first and deal with any inquiries and just kind of get inbox to zero. I get it to zero every single morning. And then I can start working on some of the tasks and other things that I have. I break up my day with some, I always go for a walk in the middle of the day, which at the moment is challenging because it's really hot at the moment. So it's usually about 25, 30 degrees when I want to go for a walk, but it's still really important because I like getting that fresh air and having that reset throughout the day. In the morning, I will often, although I'm not super disciplined at this, I will often meditate in the morning for just 10 minutes. So that's a nice way to start the day. So no, like my routine's pretty simple. I used to do a few more little exercises, some journaling and things, but nowadays it's very simple, pretty boring, really.
I guess in a way it's quite good to hear when people say it's simple, because in a way that makes it more achievable than when people have overcomplicated things. And I know I've read, Miracle Morning, and I've
read that was a big one for me.
And those have all been great, but I remember thinking that I was going to do the Miracle Morning stuff, and that was also just after we'd had a little baby. Therefore, I was having very, still am sleepless nights, but I'd set those intentions. Tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to journal, meditate, exercise, this. And then my alarm would go off and I'd have only had like 3 or 4 hours sleep, and I couldn't face getting all those things done. So the big thing is, as you say, trying to find what works for you.
And if I could just jump on that, because I read the Miracle Morning, and I did it for a little while, and it was really good for that point in my life where I didn't have, we have a 3-year-old boy now, but back then didn't have any, and we're expecting another one, by the way. We're having another boy in June. Back then, was working full time, didn't have any kids. And I was very heavily focused, like my entire day was focused on, even when I was at work, I was daydreaming about how do I get my business going? So for me at the time, the Miracle Morning was good because it motivated me, and it really gave me that drive to get my business off the ground. So doing the meditation, the affirmations, the visualization I definitely recommend it, was really good at that time in my life. Now it's not that I don't need that. I could still benefit from meditating and journaling and visualizing and doing affirmations every morning. I would still get value from that, but I don't need it as much anymore because of my kind of where I am. I've got my business off the ground. I'm well established. I've got my family. So at this stage of my life, it's not as important to me. I guess I'd rather just have a little bit of extra sleep. And so I think it's about part of productivity as well. And looking at these routines, you've got to sort of do what fits for you based on the season of your life right now. And like you said, not putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. Like with meditating and journaling. I mean, I do these things, but I put zero expectation on myself. Some people want to meditate every day or read every day or journal every day. And my approach with all of those things is I'll do it when I feel like it. Like I will notice, like if I'm getting distracted during the day, or I'm just feeling a bit like unfocused, I'll go, right, I need to meditate a bit more. And I'll maybe be a little bit more deliberate and intensive with my meditation for a week or two.
Yeah.
And same with journaling. But I set the bar really low. I don't have any expectations to do it every day, because I think that almost makes it unachievable, and that pressure gets too much. And so that's my philosophy, is I'll do it when I feel like it, or when I acknowledge that I need that in my life right now.
I think that's good to hear, because yes, and I've done it myself, where I'm like, right, I'm doing this, and then like 3 days later I've forgotten one of the things, or two of the things, or I've run out of time, and you kind of end up, you're not even present when you're doing the other things, because you're thinking I've missed them out. So yeah, it's always good for guys to hear that it's, you've got to adapt it to whatever kind of phase of life you're in. And I wonder also for you, one of the biggest things, to state the obvious, in the last 2 years has been people being forced to work from home. Now, it's not to say that some people didn't before, but for a lot of people, they would never have decided to work from home, especially if you've got kids, dogs, delivery drivers. For some guys we saw had that family, and they found it really hard to have peace and quiet, because your family shouldn't have to be quiet at home because it's their home. Then we saw some guys who lived on their own and were like, I'm really lonely, because you're not, you're not in the office. So how have you worked that balance? Because I loved being in the office when I was with 300 other guys, because we spent a lot of time pissing around, obviously. So I do miss that kind of part of it, which is why I think I've replaced it with the podcast, talking to men around the world. But how about yourself? How was that kind of integrating that into your life?
Yeah, it's not been without its challenges. I mean, when we first, I've always done a little bit of work from home. I mean, when I started working for myself, I started working from co-working spaces, partly for that, definitely same as you, for that social aspect, like just being around other people, being able to talk to other people running businesses who are maybe going through or have gone through some of the same challenges as me. So I really have enjoyed that. I mean, when lockdown started, gosh, we're 2 years into this now. So our little boy, Jay, my wife wasn't working at the time because he was still pretty young. So she was looking after him a lot. He then started kindy, or I guess what you call like daycare, or so going to kindy, and that was actually after our lockdowns. He started kindy. So then when the new lockdown kicked in, my wife was then working part-time because she'd taken on some work, and so she was working part-time, but we no longer had kindy. So of course that was then a real challenge, was when the two of us were working, Haley, my wife, only part-time, but still had plenty to do during the day. And so that was the challenge, is how do we juggle this? So it just meant the two of us communicating really well. We use like a shared calendar, so we can each see what each of us are doing. And we just try and use that calendar to kind of schedule some times. And I would even block in times for like where I wasn't going to take appointments or calls, so that I could give my wife a break so that she could do some work. So often, because I start my day early, in the afternoon, when I've kind of done the majority of my work, I would take a break, go and look after our boy Jay, take him for a walk while Haley could do some work. So just kind of working as a team and planning our time so that each of us had an opportunity to do what we wanted, was kind of how we dealt with it, really. Now I'm working from home full time. I'm actually really enjoying working from home at the moment. Again, partly just because of the season of life that I'm in right now. We have one boy. My wife's actually pregnant with another one. It's actually really nice at the moment being at home. Jay's at kindy 4 days a week. So it's actually really nice because it's some time that my wife and I get to ourselves without Jay, even though we're actually both, I'm working full time, Haley's working part-time. We still get to, like, after this today, we will go and get a coffee together. And it's just like a little bit of time together, even though we're kind of both working. It's a little bit of time where it's just us, and we can just and we don't have Jay on our hips, or playing with us throughout the day. So that's really nice at the moment. So actually I'm really enjoying working at home right now, and also just being around to help Haley while she's pregnant, and things are a bit tougher. So
it's a special kind of time. And you said the second baby's due in June, was it?
Yeah, a day before my birthday, actually.
I mean, I was talking with a kind of mentoring client yesterday, and their baby's due in 2 months' time, and that's going to be their first. So he was kind of asking me, what changes when you're a dad? And I was like, pretty much everything, because, you, especially for the first few weeks, it's such a, although the baby sleeps a lot, you're trying to be there for your partner, and you've got family come around and everything. I know the second one, sometimes it's like, you've done it once, so you kind of have been there, done that. But that'd be an interesting one. But let me ask you about, I know you're into your fitness as well and done CrossFit.
Yeah.
In December 2015, you read Unbreakable Runner. And that sparked something in me, because I remember reading that, quite a few years ago, because I was doing a lot of obstacle course racing, and that's what I loved. But what I realized, thankfully, very quickly, was that you didn't have to do loads of long distance training to be good at it.
Yeah.
So can you tell me what you kind of got out of the book? Because a lot of people, I recommend it to some people, but most might be like, oh, what do you mean Unbreakable Runner?
Yeah. So at the time I was doing a lot of running, and I had done my first half marathon, which I'd done really well at. I was aiming to do a half marathon in about 140, 145. Like when I was doing my training, I kind of realized this is a good goal to go for. Started the race, and I was tracking my pace using the running, what was the app? I can't remember, some running app on my phone.
Right.
And it was calling out my pace, and I realized, like, I'm doing pretty well here. Like, I actually think I could try and break an hour 30.
Yeah.
And had a really great race. And I came in, I think my final time was 1:29:55. So 5 seconds under 1:30. I think I was the last runner in under an hour and a half, which I was really happy with. So I came out of that race off with a big high, like, great run. Okay, next year, gonna do a full marathon. Actually, then a few months later, did Tough Mudder. The obstacle. Yeah, of course, the obstacle course race. You would know Tough Mudder. Yeah. Tough Mudder, I think that was about a half marathon. It was like 20 Ks with obviously loads of obstacles thrown in. Yeah. And unfortunately, right before the race, I lost my keys. And so I completely missed, I was running around trying to find them, and I completely missed the warm up. So I kind of started the race pretty cold. And it's obviously a pretty grueling race, like not great terrain. And I kind of hurt my knee during that race. So I was trying to recover from that, and while training for a full marathon. And I found this book. How I actually found Unbreakable Runner was through the Tim Ferriss podcast. I listened to a great interview with the author Brian McKenzie. Right. He was interviewed with Laird Hamilton, who's the big wave surfer, and his wife Gabby Reese. So it's a three-way interview, and they talked about just a lot of fitness. And but Brian talked about how you can use CrossFit training to condition your body for long distance runs without having to go out and pound the pavement for 3 hours. You can use CrossFit. So I thought, okay, that sounds interesting. So I picked up the book, looked at his programs. He then in the book says, go and try a CrossFit on-ramp course just to get familiar with some of the movements. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. Googled, found the local CrossFit gym, started the on-ramp program, the induction, and basically just fell in love with CrossFit. Like really, I was going to do it just as a temporary thing. Like I'm just going to try a couple of classes. Very quickly realized this is so much more fun than running.
And the community,
not going out
as well.
What's that? Sorry?
A kind of community of being around.
Yeah,
it's
the community. It's you're not having to go out and pound the pavement for hours. You work hard for 10, 20 minutes and then you're done. And so just got hooked on CrossFit and the community. I mean, most CrossFit gyms have really good communities. Ours is like magic. Like I've got some of my best friends are my CrossFit friends. We go camping during the summers. This weekend just gone, we spent time up with my friend's house in a couple of hours north. Like just our CrossFit friends, our CrossFit family. We're so tight. That's like such a great benefit of being in that community. So that's how it all got started, was literally through this motivation to get better at running, and then just fell in love with CrossFit. Yeah.
I think it's so important. I know we've on different podcasts when we've spoken to kind of guys that are strength and conditioning coaches or just fitness coaches, etc. And they will say, find what you enjoy. So some people love going for long runs, but it was just before we moved out of London that my partner had joined a CrossFit gym, or had done for about a year, and she loved it because it was that going there and having the camaraderie, having some competition as well. Because a lot of people aren't necessarily pushing themselves because they haven't got, they're not competing. And a few weeks ago, I went down to a CrossFit gym down in the south of England, and it's probably the first time I had competition when we were working out for years. And I ended up literally on the floor, couldn't move when I finished. I'd put that much effort in. But I took me back to, I was like, yeah, that's what happens when you have competition. You push yourself beyond what you think you can.
Yeah.
So I'm always saying to people, even if it's the races, sign up for something, but don't assume you have to do, like you say, pounding the pavements over and over again. Do the strength stuff and do some kind of interval stuff. And then you don't injure yourself as much. Now, something you'd written about was self-improvement, and you just said about mentorship as well. And we're very big on that here. We have a mentorship program. We don't call it life coaching because I think that's a crap term. But what about yourself as you've kind of, as you've gone through your business career, who have you had around you that you've kind of been able to go to just to sometimes check if you're doing the right thing or to talk to?
Yeah, definitely. One of the people that's been with me, well, the whole time really is my best friend, Chuck, here in New Zealand. He's a friend that I actually met back at school. We'd had great success working together in, we did the Young Enterprise Scheme. Right. I think you have that in the UK. Mm-hmm. So this business competition, we actually together, we represented New Zealand in an international case competition, and we won that. So we became great friends through that program. And we were both doing the same degree at Auckland University. So we just became really good friends through the end of school and into university. He's the same as me, very sort of just wants to run his own business. So he came out of university, started a couple of businesses. And so very similar mindset. So he's been an important figure because he's always somebody I've been able to lean on and just share, this is what I'm doing. He can share what he's doing. We can bounce ideas off each other. So just being around like-minded people who are kind of going through the same things as you is really useful. The co-working space is great because you come into contact again with people who are maybe a few years ahead of you. Maybe they have a similar business, they've gone through some of the challenges that you're going through, and they can say, look, here's what I learned, these are the mistakes to avoid. So that's why I think just going to co-working spaces and networking events and things like that, just trying to find those people who they don't have to do exactly the same, but if they've got some lessons that they can share that help you to avoid mistakes or fast track your learning, that's always been really good. I did a mentor program here for a couple of years, New Zealand Business Mentors, and just had a guy that met with every kind of quarter, really, just like checked in, and I would say, like, these are the sort of challenges I'm going through right now, and just being someone who is older and has loads of life experience that he can lean on. I think that's the common thread with all of these things, isn't it? It's just finding people who have experience with what you're going through, whether it's a mentor, a friend, people you meet at a networking event, just tapping into those people that can share their experiences. That's what I found to be most useful.
That's good to hear, because I think, maybe some guys are kind of embarrassed to ask for, and it's not asking for help as such, it's something, it's just advice. But I remember, I don't know if you know who Daniel Priestley is, but he'd written a couple of different books on being a key person of influence and creating digital assets, etc. And I remember him kind of saying, often there's guys who are older in business will actually enjoy helping someone, but you've got to reach out to them to start with and find someone that's maybe doing what you want to do. So yeah, just a reminder to guys to, I would say to people, just reach out to someone, and if they say no, they say no, but you never know, you might kind of be taken under the wing of someone that's doing something good.
I think most people, if it's a business owner or someone like a business owner who you want to be a mentor, like, chances are they've gone through what you're dealing with, and they sympathize with those early days and not knowing what you're doing and having that imposter syndrome, like I talked about earlier. That was something I talked about with my mentor. So they've probably gone through what you're going through and know what that feels like. So they're probably more than willing to say, yeah, like, I'd love to help you. And that's what, when people approach me now, I'm like, sure, I'll help you, because like, I know what it's like. Yeah. And if I can help in some way, that's, I will.
That's a good one to move on to. I put on Instagram about if people had any questions to have a look at your website and what have you. One of the guys, James, said about how would you best build an audience as an email audience at the moment? What would be a couple of ideas you could have? And actually that's useful for us as well, because we're, I'm still learning from all these different people of how to not just build an email list, because you want to have the right people on there.
Yeah, for me, like just producing good content and being helpful has always been like the best strategy. So, content comes in many different forms. So obviously I started with my blog. I then did a podcast, or I do a podcast as well, because I've written a blog post. It's a very small amount of additional work to like turn on a microphone and turn my blog post into a podcast. So that way, if you like reading, you can read. If you like listening in the gym or in the car, you can listen to the podcast. And then now YouTube is really big for me. Like I get a lot of my consulting clients through YouTube. I produce screen share videos about Asana and Pipedrive. So whatever the medium, whatever the channel that you like, or, obviously YouTube lends itself really well to the type of business that I have because I'm consulting on software. Whatever medium or channel works for you, just make it a regular practice to produce good quality, regular content. Some people have some concern around, well, I don't want to give away too much advice because then people aren't going to pay me for my service or product. And I found that the opposite is true. The more you kind of give away, I mean, sure, you want to keep some secrets and some of the best bits back, but by being really generous with your content and giving real good value, people will, and that's the first thing. They're not going to sign up to your newsletter unless you've delivered some value. Like I won't sign up to a newsletter unless I kind of know that, okay, this person, I've watched some videos, I know they know what they're talking about. So that's my biggest tip, is produce good content, be helpful, and then just point people in the direction of your newsletter. Generally, I think it's good to have some kind of lead magnet instead of just saying, sign up to get my updates, which is a very unexciting call to action. I think it's good to have some kind of sign up and get my free training series or my free ebook or whatever it might be that's a bit more interesting than just updates.
It's all these little things, again, that I've got several friends that are either starting businesses or building them. And, no one's taught you this stuff when you're at school, and especially myself, I was 36, 37 before I had to even think of this stuff. So you've not grown up with it. It's kind of the other thing you can do. What I found is get lost in watching YouTube videos, with people that are giving you tips and advice, and 2 hours has gone by and you haven't actually done any work. You've just watched more advice. So the old paralysis of analysis. But what about for yourself?
Actually, if I could just jump on that, because again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with seasons. Like when I was in those early days, I was doing my miracle morning. I was really focused on getting my business off the ground. I was consuming a lot of content as well. Things like the Fizzle podcast, which is this great podcast that helps, kind of information businesses, like ours, sort of develop your email list, get an audience. So I was listening to that. I was listening to Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, Gary V, just for the hype and the hustle. Now I listen. I don't listen to that stuff nearly as much. Again, a bit like the Miracle Morning, not because I don't think it's not valuable. It's just in that season of my life where I was at, it was really important at the time to be learning a lot. But you're right. You have to translate that into action and actually be doing stuff. And I think, if you're not careful, you end up just consuming content because it feels productive. It's like, I'm learning all this stuff. I'm educating myself, and you're kind of tricking yourself. But actually, you need to turn that into results and translate that into action and execute. So now I'm not really going through that as much because my business is off the ground. I'm up and running. Now my time is better spent learning about other things. Like we can talk about Bitcoin soon. Like I'm actually interested in these things because it's helping me to invest my income into other areas. That's more appropriate for the season of life I'm in right now. So just wanted to add that on the back of what you said.
It's good. And it's all these little things that I always say with podcasts, that there's lots of little golden nuggets. And one, you could have, let's say you've got 1,000 guys listen to it. You've got some that might listen to something early on and be like, hey, that's really useful. And then there might be something in the last 5 minute that comes up that someone finds is a little gem. Well, go on then. Let's talk about crypto. Let's talk about Bitcoin, because I mean, it's such a big thing. I first heard about it when I worked in the city, didn't have a clue about it, like most people didn't. And one of our clients had bought like 100 grand's worth of it when it was, that's 7 or 8 years ago. So he was an early adopter, as it were. But it was only really about 2 years ago that I properly got interested and actually started kind of investing in it. So what about yourself? Where was your crypto journey? Where did your crypto journey start?
So it started in 2017. Again, my friend Chuck, who I mentioned earlier, he'd been into it, and him and another friend, we actually went out for dinner, and they kind of like orange pilled me, so to speak, you know. Orange pill is the if you're not sure the reference, it's a reference from like the Matrix, the red and the blue pill, and the orange pill is the Bitcoin pill. So you orange pill someone, you get them into Bitcoin. So they taught me a lot about like how it works and what it's about and how it's different to other cryptocurrencies. So I got started in 2017, right before the big run up from like 2 or 3K went up to about 19K that year. So I got started then, and basically since then I've just been dollar cost averaging my way in, like weekly payments. And I definitely find that's the best way to get in. Don't worry too much about the price. Like if you believe in the long-term value of Bitcoin, don't worry too much about the price. It is going up. So some people try and play the market and get in when it's really low, but you end up missing opportunities. I think dollar cost averaging your way in with regular payments is the best way. I do sometimes make additional payments with when the market is down. But that's how I got started. Yeah. And you'll notice I've only mentioned Bitcoin. To this day, I only hold Bitcoin. We can talk about that if you want, but yeah, I guess you'd call me like a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not really interested in any other cryptocurrencies.
Oh, I find it interesting. And do you know, I was talking about this earlier with my partner, because what I find I love and also find so frustrating is you can listen to 3 different experts who all in their own right sound like they know exactly what they're talking about. And one will say that Bitcoin is going to 500,000 or more. And I'm like, great, that would not surprise me at all. One will say Bitcoin's going to 0 and the government are going to crush it and etc. And you're like, it's also, you know, could happen. Who knows these days, especially in the last 2 years, you know, nobody rules anything out. And then you have someone else say privacy coins are the way forward, like Monero, because ultimately people will wake up to the fact that the governments are, you know, slowly they're overreaching on the ability to control us. And I mean, look at what's going on in Canada at the moment with the truckers. You know, whether people agree with what they're doing or not, that eyebrows should be raised when they're having their bank accounts frozen.
Yeah, definitely.
Trying to, you know, do the same to their cryptocurrency, because you're like, hey, when was this about a virus? You know, what happened to 3 weeks to flatten the curve, and now you're freezing people's bank accounts. So that's why I find it, you know, even for yourself, I find it so interesting to have different takes on it, because honestly, I have invested in it because I believe in it, but nothing would surprise me these days.
Yeah, here's my take and kind of why I'm Bitcoin only. And I'll preface this by saying, look, I'm not an expert. I don't market myself as a Bitcoin expert. Like I'm literally just regurgitating what I've learned after. I mean, I've been learning about it now for 5 years, so I feel like I know a little bit, but you know, just want to, I guess, put that disclaimer out there. But what I understand about it is like, what problem does Bitcoin solve, or cryptocurrency? What problem does it solve? Some people think, well, you know, it's faster. You know, it's quicker than regular payments. And that's actually one of the ways people sometimes attack Bitcoin, is they say Bitcoin's old, it's slow. This one is quicker and cheaper. And actually, if you think about it, most people don't have a problem with the speed of their money. When you buy a coffee, or you buy anything really, like you're not sitting there waiting for the payment to go through, are you?
You're not like
you use a credit card or a debit card, and you pay and you get the coffee. So the speed of the money is not the problem, I don't think. The main problem that cryptocurrency or Bitcoin solves is who controls the money. Because all fiat currencies, normal currencies like the New Zealand dollar, the euro, the US dollar, all of them are controlled by a central bank. And that central bank, that small group of people at the bank, they get to decide the rules about how that currency works. They get to create more of it, like during times of stimulus, when stimulus is needed, like COVID, or now the war with Russia and Ukraine, we're probably going to see a lot more money printing. And that's going to have an impact on inflation. It's going to erode your purchasing power, because if they suddenly create more money, that amount that I've saved is now worth less. It's a smaller portion of the total pie. So my purchasing power goes down. So that, I believe, is the problem with money, is that it's controlled by people. So then Bitcoin comes along and says, well, it's basically a protocol. It's a technology that says these are the rules. And through proof of work, we're getting a bit technical, but through the proof of work that backs Bitcoin, this is the miners that consume a lot of power. that protects the network and means the network can run without any central authority controlling it. A lot of other cryptocurrencies use a different consensus mechanism, which is proof of stake. So they don't use power to achieve consensus in the network. People stake their coins. So let's just take Ethereum, for example. They're actually switching to proof of stake with Ethereum 2.0. And so in a proof of stake system, you stake your coins, and the people who stake their coins, they get more votes or control over the network. And Ethereum and a lot of altcoins have been pre-mined. So venture capitalists and the owners of these cryptocurrencies actually control the majority of the pie. And so they're doing all the staking, they're getting the benefit. And so in my mind, people can dispute me, they can debate me on this. In my mind, they haven't solved the fundamental problem, which is that money is controlled by people. Because now, if you buy Ethereum or some other altcoin, instead of buying the New Zealand dollar or the US dollar that's controlled by a government, you're just buying another cryptocurrency that's controlled by another group of people who have created it. So I don't think, that's why I am much more bullish on Bitcoin. It's why I want to hold my wealth in Bitcoin, because I know that system, the rules of the game cannot be changed. Ethereum's changed its monetary policy multiple times. I know with Bitcoin, the policy cannot change. It has a fixed supply. And that's where I want to put my wealth, because I know that system cannot be tampered with.
I think it's so interesting. And even as you're talking, it kind of, I find it, I learned something, and that's why it's great to talk to different people. I interviewed a guy called Max Wright, who has got a big cryptocurrency channel. And, he felt like, he's massively down the rabbit hole of how controlled the banking system is and how rigged it is, and et cetera, et cetera. So, that's why it's always good to talk to different guys. And I enjoy now getting around people that are even interested in crypto, because I've found that those people may be a little bit more awake to how the world works. And they understand that there is another way, and just putting your money in your bank isn't the only option. So, I heard a great expression the other day, because with investments, this is not just Bitcoin, people often tell you only invest what you're willing to lose. Right. Yeah.
And I heard this expression, which is only keep in the bank what you're willing to lose. And it was after this Canada froze the funds. It's like, well, if you leave money in the bank, there's a central authority who can shut you down and say you can't spend your money.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Paul, have your banks stopped you from transferring money to crypto exchanges? Because we saw over here, even my dad had it, where Barclays and I think TSB and maybe NatWest, or it was, basically, this is what will make people laugh if they think about it for a minute. They said, we're protecting your money for you because we don't want you to lose your money. Therefore, we're stopping you from transferring it to crypto exchanges. And you say, but you don't mind me transferring it to betting sites, and you don't mind me transferring it if I buy the lottery, which is, a millions to one. The likelihood is I'm going to lose all that money. So at what point have you started caring about how I spend my money? Or is it competition for you?
Yeah. Or even look at Meta, Facebook, which is now Meta. Their stock tanked, was it 25% or something ridiculous the other day?
Yeah. And
this is an established company that, publicly traded company, and people want to protect you from Bitcoin because that's volatile. Well, look what happened to Meta. Look what Amazon, I heard this on a podcast the other day. So I'm just, again, repeating what I've heard, but I think the Amazon stock, guess how many times Amazon stock decreased 50%, over 50% from its inception to where we are today? Any ideas?
I would, because your brain would be like, oh, hardly any, but then I bet it's actually a load of
It's actually been like over 5 times.
Really?
Amazon's stock has cut 50%. It's actually reduced 80% twice.
Yeah.
Which is kind of similar to what we've seen in Bitcoin. You have these big pullbacks in the price.
Yeah.
But volatility is the price you pay, or it's for the risk, for that huge potential upside. Yes. So you have to take a very long-term view. You have to take a very long-term view with it. But no, to come back to your question, I haven't had any issues here in New Zealand. I have heard that in the UK. With the exchange that I use here in New Zealand, it's a New Zealand exchange. The only thing they say is you do have to use a bank account in your personal name. You can't use a company account, or I guess like an account under a trust or something. And so I'm very thankful that I never set up a business account. I just have, it's technically a personal bank account, which I use for my business. So I'm glad I never set up a business bank account for that reason. Don't take that as advice. You need to check with your accountant if that's okay. It is here. Because then I can transfer funds from my business, which is under my personal account. It's under a personal account, into Bitcoin. So no, I've never had any issues. But I mean, I look at that and I just interpret that as, look, the banks are probably seeing the writing on the wall a little bit in terms of they stand to lose, because with Bitcoin or crypto, you can be your own bank. You know, you can hold with Bitcoin, you hold the keys, you hold the funds.
Yeah.
You don't have to use them as a custodian. I mean, for what it's worth, I think banks should be looking at like what services they can provide on top of Bitcoin, because we see services now like Ledn and BlockFi, where you can actually deposit crypto and they can hold that as collateral and you can get a loan against that.
Yeah.
Or they're paying savings. They're paying like 9% interest on Bitcoin deposits. So that's what I think. Banks should be looking at this as a massive opportunity, but I think they're probably seeing it more as a big threat, which is why they're trying to stop you.
Well, do you know what? I mean, and I know you, I'll pull it up in a minute with the interview, because I'm sure you've got stuff to do. But what I found really interesting was, in this country, I know there's like a limit on, if banks collapse, they'll say, I think it's, let's say 85,000, assuming that people have got 85,000 in their bank account. And then I ask people, well, if the bank, let's say it's Barclays, if they collapsed, then I say, you'll get at least your 85,000 is protected. And they say, yeah, it's protected. And I say, okay, where does that money come from? And they say, well, I don't know. And I say, well, it's a pool of money that all the other banks and institutions pay into. So it gives you that protection money. They're like, okay, great. I said, but what if all the other banks collapse as well? Then there's no one to pay into the pool. Therefore, there's no money coming back. And people go, oh, so what happened then? I say, well, you're fucked and you won't have any money left.
Yeah.
And then it gets interesting.
Yeah. I kind of look at it right now as like, the world is a crazy place right now. It is insane. Like, we've got COVID's been happening for the last 2 years, which has resulted in massive amounts of stimulus, like all over the world, the US, Europe, New Zealand. Everyone's been printing money like crazy to prop up the economy, because politicians are short-sighted. They want to just get reelected. They can't handle the idea of a recession, so they have to keep the economy going. And that results in, like we talked about earlier, massive inflation, which we're seeing now. And the result is we, the people, our purchasing power gets eroded. So, and then we've got, war with Russia and Ukraine kicking off. You've got social unrest. You've got protests handling everywhere. There is a revolution coming. There's, if you've read the book like The Fourth Turning, this idea that the economy and kind of go, not just the economy, but like the political sphere and just social dynamics go through these big like 80-year cycles, where you go through like post-World War II, you go through this spring and summer, this booming middle class, but then people get greedy and complacent, and then you get into sort of autumn, winter, where there's more social unrest, which is kind of the phase that we're in right now. Yeah. So, and I do think things are probably going to get a little bit worse before they get better. But all that to say, the world is this very uncertain place right now. And for me, one of the reasons I like Bitcoin is that I can take the money from my business and my savings, and I can just opt out of that craziness. Like, I can literally remove my money from the economy, because everything else that you can invest in, like property, stocks, bonds, everything's kind of influenced by the economy. And yes, Bitcoin is as well. But the great thing about Bitcoin is like its policy is fixed. Like we talked about earlier, it cannot be changed. It's got this fixed supply of 21 million coins. The rules, the supply schedule, all of that is fixed in stone, and no amount of lobbying power, no number of politicians can change that. So I like putting my money into that, because it's a great way of just opting out of the economy and going, look, I don't like this craziness. I'm just going to use technology and maths and this amazing network of computers around the world to protect my wealth.
I like it. And I think for guys listening, I know some of the guys, because I get messages, are interested in crypto and have got involved. Others are like, I'm totally clueless. I don't know where to start. But I was thinking, the more people you listen to who talk about it, the more you're going to build up your own idea. And then, if you're going to put money into it or any other kind of coins, therefore you can, what's your appetite for risk? Are you going to diversify into precious metals and et cetera, et cetera? So It sounds like there's another crypto podcast in there somewhere. But right, well, look, I'm going to let you go. So I appreciate all your time. What's your plan straight after this? You say you might go for a quick
coffee. Get coffee. Yeah, we're going to go. My wife and I are going to go get a coffee and then just come home and get into some work for the rest of the day. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. And what's the best, if guys wanted to get hold of you, just head straight to your website?
Yeah, my website, paulminers.com. I'm on Twitter @paulminers and YouTube. Just type in my name there as well.
Lovely. Right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate all your time. And I always say, hopefully at some point in the future, we will cross paths for a man hug. But yeah, for the guys listening, reach out to Paul if you've got any questions or want to work with him, and we will catch you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Cheers, Ed.
Thanks for listening. Remember to sign up to our game-changing weekly e-letter that's read by men around the world. Sign up at wholemanacademy.com/movement. Until next time.